Hello, and welcome to the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. Today, I am super excited about my guest. Her name is Olivia Alvizo Johnson. Olivia is a millennial Latina therapist and founder of Liv Curiously Therapy. She helps anxious and ambitious women retire their good, responsible daughter identity and start living a life they feel more aligned with. And I'm so excited because Olivia is a returning guest. She and I did an episode about breaking the cycle of people pleasing, and I'm so happy to have her back on the podcast. Welcome, Olivia.
Hello, thank you for having me back. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm happy to have you. And before we dive into our conversation for today, what are three things that you can't live without and why?
Ooh, it's hard to think of three things. I'm going to keep it simple. My family, because they're what keep me going, they're what keep me grounded. Coffee, I have to throw coffee in there. What's another thing that I just can't live without? The third thing would be a really good show. It doesn't matter what it is, it's just a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you on all three of those things, even the phone, because like I'm so connected to my phone. But what's a good show that you're watching right now?
Well, I finally just finished. I'm late to the game. Scandal. OMG. Talk about one drama after another. I literally just watched the last episode today. So that was really great. I recommend, I'm sure everybody already seen it. And I also just finished Beef on Netflix. Yeah.
That is so cool. I haven't seen Scandal.
No, I don't feel so bad.
I've heard about it. The only thing that I've seen remotely close to it was like How to Get Away with Murder and the crossover episode that they had. Spoiler alert. That's the closest that I got to Scandal.
Same until now. Yeah, now I guess I'm now like, oh yeah, I've seen it.
I really love the fact that you chose a career path in therapy. And I want to know what made you want to become a therapist?
It stemmed from a place of wanting to help people, wanting to just help people, which is what led me to the work that I do with trying to help other women retire their good, responsible daughter. Because I think when I started out with, I just want to help people, was my own people pleasing or my own, I just want to be good, right? And I guess my form of how do I make other people happy? But it's a mixed bag, right? Because there's a lot of suffering right now in the world, even 10 years ago, even now. And so honestly, it's done from helping people, and that just kind of evolved. I've been in the field now for 13 plus years. Helping people evolved, and it led me to my decision of like, no, I actually want to work one-on-one with people in therapy, and it's draining and I love it so much.
And I love how you said at the core of everything was wanting to help people. And
Mm.
I love how it evolved into not just helping people, but helping a specific group of people. Can you talk about that evolution? How did you get to a point where you're like, I want to help people with this specific thing rather than a general thing?
Yeah, I think it's also a reflection of my own journey, which is so hard for me to talk about openly, because one of the things that I am slowly starting to talk about, like how it connects with trying to retire the good daughter identity, because that's usually paired with the people pleasing, is emotional vulnerability. I'm still in therapy, been in therapy now for like 4 plus years. And honestly, when I started to notice certain patterns or I started to kind of evolve, that's when my way of wanting to show up and help others started to evolve. And I started to realize that it was more than just a niche, right? We hear that term of like, oh, what's your like ideal client and the niche, right? Like that's important, yes. And it's more personal to me now rather than like, I just want to help everybody. But that's also not realistic. And also, I don't even think that that's even probably ethical to some degree, right? Because I can't help everybody. It's not realistic. And so I realized, like, yeah, I can help everybody. And at this phase in life, as a 35-year-old woman, a lot of the clients that I work with, yeah, there's some similarities to what I've experienced.
Yeah, and I can imagine, especially in the therapist role, that there are some moments where you have to learn how to balance the needs of the client with your own needs.
Mm.
How do you balance the needs of your clients while also respecting your own needs and understanding what it means to take care of yourself as you learn to help others?
Such a great question. And honestly, I have so many things running through my mind. I'm gonna honestly, what I keep coming back to is that I figured out my own stuff. And I say that as if like I'm healed. No, it's like this healing is ongoing, but it truly is my own therapy. Because of my own therapy experience, I have been now able to recognize what is mine and what is the client. Not that I had trouble with it before, but I think tying back to that good daughter role, people pleasing is you want to drop everything of your own and always just give and give and give. And how do I make, I want them to feel happy. I don't want them to feel sad. But there's an emotional boundary, right? So I think it's identifying what is mine and what is theirs, right? And whether it's in session or outside of session, it's like noticing, paying attention to my body, right? Like if I'm noticing some sort of maybe whether it's a reaction in session and taking note, but putting that to the side. I always try to say, practice what you preach to your clients. What are those emotional boundaries? Listening to your body. What is it that you need? How can we put into practice what we preach? Sometimes I'll say, is it that I usually encourage clients to do? Let me try and do it too. That's helped me kind of practice more because I know when I hear advice about set boundaries, it's usually with other people, which is so important. Sometimes it gets lost of how do we actually hold boundaries for ourselves because we're in a
Mm.
relationship with ourselves. How do we hold those boundaries? And so, yeah, I think it's me going to therapy, me really kind of learning my own body cues, emotional cues, and making sure I remind myself in a gentle way, not a critical way, how am I also practicing what I preach? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you said creating boundaries for ourselves because a lot of the times we go into that people pleasing mode when we don't have any self-regulated boundaries. And
Mhm.
it's very interesting that you mentioned practicing what you preach because a lot of the times it's so easy to give advice and to say the right things. But if you put that into practice, you're not going to be able to sustain yourself and create those boundaries, you know?
Mhm. Yes, and sometimes I don't always practice what I preach. And you know what? I own it because we're human. We're not gonna be, I always like to say we're not gonna be these perfectly healed humans. That's just not realistic.
Yeah, and since you're in the mental health field, what are two mental health stigmas that you wish could change and why?
Ooh, two mental health stigma. I think what's really popping up into mind is this. One, I think there's still stigma around therapy, especially within the Latino culture. That combined with this other advice that I hear of like, just cut people off. While I am on social media, I recognize social media has like everybody is a therapist. It's a cool thing that people can share their stories, but when you hear someone just like, well, just cut them off and just say this and just say that, I think it gets a little messy then sometimes. I think that with the cross with like still stigma around therapy, going to therapy, how that's a sign of weakness. In some Latino families, you just keep everything in the family. You don't speak out loud your problems. I know it's not just the Latino community. I think those two things come up because it comes up in session with a lot of the clients that I work with.
I definitely agree with you, especially about therapy being stigmatized, because even though we are getting better at making sure that people do go to therapy or not see it as something that's a crutch for life or something that you're airing the family's dirty laundry, especially like in the Black and West Indian community as well. Like, we have this thing where we don't want strangers to fix our problems. It has to be all in the family or nothing. And so I'm glad you brought up that stigma like surrounding therapy, because it's still something that is dealt with. We
Mm.
just don't see it as much anymore because people are becoming their own therapists, especially online. And also with the whole self diagnosing and everything like that, like, we're really seeing that people are going to therapy, but there's still that stigma surrounding it. So I'm glad you brought that
Mhm.
up.
I feel like we can go on and on about it.
I want to hear more about Liv Curiously Therapy. Like, how did you come up with this business design and what was the inspiration behind it?
The day will come where I can publicly speak about it because I also have to give credit to my husband. Because my husband, Jovan, we were sitting at home one day, and I've always had these bouts of, I can't do it, I can't do it. No, yes, I can. And he's always been so encouraging, but he has such a creative mind. And we were playing around with name of my practice. And eventually he said, well, what about Live Curiously? Because people that really know me or my family, they call me V growing up or Liv, right? Outside of that, everyone will call me Olivia, in more professional spaces. So that felt more personal. And when he said it, it stuck. I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. I have to give him credit. We came up with it together, but when he said it, I was like, that's it. Because it felt personal and it also reflected my own journey, right? My therapist would ask that question, curious, what would this be like? Or I'm curious, what are you feeling? So this idea of being curious instead of critical, a big thing, right? We can be curious about ourselves without being so critical, and that's hard. It's definitely hard for me. So that's kind of like how it came about. It's a mixture of my own personal experience and growth, all the work that I've already done with clients, what I've noticed. Yeah, that's kind of like the story of how that came about. And I'm still building off of it. I feel like it's still fresh. I've only been like a year into my solo practice, so it's exciting.
And kudos to your husband for helping you come up with that. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, that is so creative. Play on Olivia, like,
Right?
curiously. That is just so awesome. But I also appreciate what you said about learning to live and learning to not be so critical of yourself, but giving yourself the space to have that curiosity about life, because it's all about exploring, and part of healing is self discovery. I love how that all ties
Yes.
together.
And that's why I feel passionately about it. I literally fell in love with that name, like Live Curiously. I don't care how cheesy it sounds. Yeah, that's exactly what. And I even just as a therapist, I think just me as a person now, right? Wow. I didn't realize how critical I used to be of myself. And now I'm trying to live more curiously.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could all learn to live more curiously, especially when we're dealing with self exploration and learning to get rid of certain identities and archetypes in order to fulfill our purpose. And so, speaking
Mhm.
of, I know that you have the good, responsible daughter identity that you're helping women to learn how to leave behind. So, what is the good, responsible daughter identity, and what are the signs that you're operating in it?
Yeah, it's women who grew up too fast. Usually, one of their parents carry their own trauma, but unhealed. And they grew up too fast, having one parent who is either emotionally immature, who is emotionally abusive, who really leaned on them emotionally. Noticed in a lot of the work that I do too, it tends to usually be like not both. It's usually like this one parent, and the other parent can meet their needs. They do tend to be like the eldest daughter or the oldest daughter. Most of the women that I work with tend to be like oldest daughters who've really had to take on that emotional load, right? Some of the signs are like you grew up reading the room, right? You grew up reading body language, tone, whether or not someone's in like a good mood, bad mood, really paying attention to that because they knew that especially if the one parent that was a little bit more emotionally volatile, right? If they had to figure out, okay, how am I going to approach the situation? Do I need to calm this parent down? Do I need to calm the other parent down? What do I need to do with my siblings? So it becomes this survival mode of I need to take care of people. And it happens over and over again.
Hello again. Before you dive into the rest of today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you would want to share about how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith-based, women of color owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t-shirts, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a wide variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on these platforms. If you have any questions, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode.
And it's complex. There's many layers. One of the things that's similar is this body armor that these women had to create when they were younger to survive unpredictable, chaotic home environments. But it was also seen as, well, they were the good ones. They never caused any trouble. They were easy. They were always nice because it was conditioned through trauma of like, I can't rock the boat because I've seen what happens if this parent goes off the rails, or and it's not even being a little vague here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like physical abuse, right? It's more specifically like this emotional toxicity where sometimes one parent can call like you selfish or dramatic, right? Over the years, just more responsibility put on you, especially if you're the first in your family, the eldest daughter. Those are some of the signs growing up and in adulthood, especially when women, they're ambitious, they have goals, they have dreams, they survive, they got through it, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. I got this, right? And they do. They go on, they graduate, they move out, they create a life. And then somewhere along the way, they start to notice this inner turmoil, the overthinking, the anxiety, the people pleasing patterns, which maybe at the time they don't realize is people pleasing because they grew up being like, well, I'm making everybody happy, not realizing that their own happiness ended up dependent on whether or not everyone else was happy.
Mm.
Because that's what they knew what safety was growing up, right? So usually when the women that come to therapy and that I work with are usually like in their late 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s of like, I've accomplished so much, yet I'm just battling. I'm realizing that I'm always sacrificing myself for everybody else. And I'm starting to feel resentful and anxious, and I just don't feel okay. And that's when they start to unpack. My childhood was fine. It was
Mm.
okay. And then they start to unpack that their emotional needs were not actually met as children, because that's what kids need. I guess those are the main points for me that I see in my work with women and also even my own experience.
Yeah, and the most interesting part about what you explained is that there is survival. There is
Mm-hmm.
getting out of it. There is being an adult, creating your own life, but you're still dealing with the emotional residue of what happened in the past and in your childhood. And speaking from the oldest daughter, being an oldest daughter myself, I have also seen the constant ambition and the constant need to always be everything to everyone. And it's super exhausting, but I didn't realize that it had to do with my childhood and a lot of the responsibilities I was given as a kid, and through my parents and them going through their own marital issues. A lot of that fell on me. And
Mm.
it was something that I didn't realize until going to therapy and kind of uncovering all of those things. And so I think it's really important to pinpoint why we want to put on that good, responsible daughter identity. And if you could speak to the woman that doesn't know that she's a good, responsible daughter, but she comes into your session and you automatically see, yes, you are doing the good, responsible daughter things. What would you say to her to encourage her to step out of that?
Honestly, it's saying to her, hey, you're not crazy. And the reason why I say that is because there is a part of them that knows that what they went through growing up wasn't okay, but they convinced themselves in a survival tactic, they convinced themselves that, like, no, everything was fine. And so so one, you're not crazy. Two, it's validating their experience. Because when you are the good, responsible daughter, it's this unintentional, like, suppression of emotions. So it's validating, hey, I see you. What you're feeling is not coming out of nowhere. It's real. What you're experiencing is very real. Because I might be also coming from my own experience at this point too. I think sometimes right in the beginning, saying to someone, hey, I think this is like a good daughter identity, it might be hard to hear, right? Because what is that, right? What is that? I don't think anyone wants to admit. I know for me, of like, wait, what? Like, I'm a people pleaser? Like, but I thought, wait, what? Right? It kind of is like, wait, what? And I think it's also the emphasis of like, it's not something wrong with you, right? It isn't something bad that you've done or wrong. You've been through some stuff in life and you figured out a way how to navigate it. And you're here now in therapy because you're realizing something is not okay. You're realizing that something hasn't been okay internally for you. And that's such a beautiful, powerful thing because you spend so many years caring about everybody else, which is a beautiful thing. I always hold that multiple things can be true at the same time. It's a beautiful thing to care for other people. And while you are taking care of everybody else, sometimes it was hard to take care of your own emotional needs. And you should be proud of that. I hope that they feel proud because that is the first step to ending and retiring that good daughter identity. It's stopping and honoring yourself, being like, something's not okay. Maybe I should go to therapy. Here I am. That's the first step.
Right.
The commitment to it, and afterwards, going in and trying your best to stay consistent, it'll come. But I think the first thing is you got there. Yeah, they could keep going.
And I love the acknowledgement that it's okay, that you're not crazy, and that you're taking the first step to honor your healing and go through that process. You almost started to talk about moments when you had to do the same thing. Was there a moment where you had to dismantle the good, responsible daughter identity? How did you identify this part of yourself, and what helped you liberate yourself from it?
I'm in the process now. More recently, that term, someone had used that term and I sat with it and I'm like, yeah, what is this about? I started to read a little bit more about what does this actually mean and realizing that connection with like people pleasing, but then also realizing some of the things that maybe clients have said over the years. Like, oh, there's just this pressure. I'm thinking about the comments that were said to me growing up, and they weren't bad. This is why I said earlier about like, you're not crazy, right? Because it didn't feel bad. These compliments, like, oh, you're just so nice, or oh, you're so mature for your age, or oh, you're so responsible. It's not a bad compliment, I guess. But when you say that to a child, right, and you say that over and over again, it gets a little confusing. So I'm being kind of rewarded for being good. And I realized I was a people pleaser. It was like, oh, wait a minute. To be loved is to just be accepted for who I am, not because if I just make everyone happy, then I'll be loved and accepted and not rejected. And it's like, oh, whoa, no, right? If I'm always good, always nice, always responsible. It's a whole other conversation of growing up as a woman, especially a woman of color in this country. That's about being nice, being responsible, being mature, but that's also thrown in there. So I think I'm still in the middle of unpacking that and what that means for me, retiring that. For me, I realize posting on social media in a very public way is my way of trying to break my own people pleasing cycle, because my people pleaser part is like, oh, what if you ruffle feathers? What if you say the wrong thing? What if someone isn't, that's also the critical part of me. It's like both. Practice what I preach. I'm going to do things even when I'm scared.
And it's interesting because a lot of the times we don't realize that some of the things we were taught growing up were coming from a good place, but the intention versus the impact, those are two different things. And I just love that you brought that up. Speaking to the good, responsible daughter, that identity, it's so easy to just put it on because you believe that, like you said, you're going to be loved if you do more things for more people.
Hmm.
So, to the woman that needs more convincing about leaving this identity behind, what would you say to that person who is at a point in their life where they're like, this is good, my childhood was good, we can bypass that? Like, what would you say to that person?
Ooh, girl. Just kidding. I think what comes to mind is I think she really needs to hear that, like, hey, you're not alone. It wasn't just you. Because I think what I'm also hearing in that is a little bit of denial of what happened from a protective place. But I think it's saying, like, yeah, you're not alone. It's not only you. Not in a, oh, it's not just you. Again, you're not crazy. You're not alone in this, right? It's realizing multiple things can be true. Maybe there are parts of your childhood that were good and parts of your life that were amazing. But what about the parts of you that you keep hidden? I recently wrote, I don't even know if I would call it a poem, on Instagram titled The Good Responsible Daughter. And it's going back to this body armor, right? The, oh, I'm fine, everything's good. That's like, okay, I hear you. But what happens at night when you take that body armor off and you
Mm.
feel completely drained and you're sitting there on your bed or staring at the ceiling, feeling drained, lonely, and not fine because you took that body armor off, right? It's in those moments, it's like, yeah, you deserve to be cared for as well.
Absolutely. That is such a good reminder of like how much, especially as women of color, we have this habit of putting so much pressure on ourselves to be that pillar for everyone else to lean on, but we don't really understand sometimes that we need our own pillar to lean on. We need people to surround us because we can't hold up everybody at the same time. I'm curious to know if you've ever received resistance. Was there ever a time where you had challenges in working with your clients to leave behind the good, responsible daughter, and how did you resolve them?
Honestly, there's so many folks that are coming to mind. One, I think it's a never ending journey. And I say this to clients all the time. I don't say that in a pessimistic way. I think I say it in a powerful way of over time, because at least I noticed this, those internal beliefs that were created or put there, they fade to the background a little bit. The resistance that you're referring to is it can feel so scary to let go of who we thought we were or need to be. But it's like, if you let that go, then what am I? And sometimes out here, like, but what if this is the wrong decision? But what if I put more distance with this parent? Because there are some people that are like, actually, I would cut off my parent, but more complicated to do. And that's their choice, right? Like, I'm not sitting there being like, cut off your parents. No, right? It takes a lot. But I think it's also navigating, how do I put more distance? And even that's hard because it's still wrestling with that part of them that are like, but that's my mom or that's my dad. and still grieving that childhood. So the resolution is more of the, okay, I can accept that I cannot change my past. I can accept that I cannot change my parent. I'm just thinking of that as an example. What I can do is accept that I'm changing, I'm evolving, right? And it's through these, I kind of joke with clients of like, oh, y'all are doing your own exposure therapy, right? Because sometimes it's like afraid of doing something differently and they'll do it and they'll come back and they're like, oh my God, I did it and I survived. When you can finally internally be like, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to be okay. Like, even if X, Y, and Z happens, even if I stand up to my parent and they end up not talking to me for a while, I'm going to be okay. Or if I ruffle a family member's feathers and then, yeah, okay, they ignore me at the next family event, I'm going to be okay. I might feel a lot of things, right? Clients may be like, I'm going to still feel angry or sad or hurt, and I'm okay. And so I think that resolution of like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm going to be okay. Putting the body armor down, I'm going to be okay because I feel internally safe. Because that's the other part, right? Like if you don't really feel like that safety within, it's really hard to let go of things that used to help you.
Like feeling internally safe, but learning how to just have that resolve. Like, I'm gonna be okay no matter what we're going through. Like
Mhm.
you said, the exposure therapy, right? Sometimes we do things that scare us because in the moment it seems scary, but when we take those small action steps, that's why I always say, like, it's all about the micro wins. It's
Mm-hmm.
not so much about the big steps or the things that you want to do in large chunks. Break it down and have those wins, and so it won't feel so overwhelming. And I also
Yes.
love that you talked about healing that aspect of childhood where it's like you don't want to totally cut off your parents, but at the same time it's like holding them in tandem with the evolution that you're experiencing. So how do you create that balance between, I want to respect and honor my parents still,
Mhm.
but I also want to be my own woman and not feel like I have to take care of you all the time?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's many things and it's different for everybody, especially if you know that parents are going to physically be there, still going to be there at events. It's multiple things. It's one, it could be the behavioral part of it of like, I don't pick up as often anymore, right? Clients are like, they've made decisions of like, I'm not going to actually, I've removed myself from that family group chat, or I don't answer the text right away, or I don't answer my call. They'll just go straight to voicemail, right? Or if a parent asks something of you and you're like, no, I can't actually. They might get upset. The other part is also that ongoing internal healing, because I think what also happens is like, oh my God, I didn't answer that phone call, right? Or I left that group chat. Oh my gosh, my parents gonna be so mad. And then they're gonna tell maybe my aunt and my uncle, and then they're gonna tell the whole family. And you start to kind of worry because the women that I work with are also so close to family, right? Family is such a pillar for them. And so it's also holding of like, you know what? I'm holding my boundary. This doesn't feel good, right? Because boundaries don't always feel good. Heavy
Right.
emphasis on that. Holding my boundaries, right? Knowing that this person is still going to kind of be somewhere, right? In my space, but still holding that no matter what. And also unlearning this belief that I am a bad daughter for saying no, because saying no does not mean disrespect. Saying no or sticking up for yourself with a parent does not mean you're being disrespectful. If anything, you're like, I'm just having respect for myself and the
Right.
relationship. Because I think that's the other part of unlearning the belief that I am a bad daughter if I say no. I'm a bad daughter if I don't answer the fifth, third call from my mom, right? So I think it's like both, right? So the behavioral acts, but also that internal work of really unlearning those harmful beliefs.
I
Yeah.
agree with you. And the unlearning part, I'm glad you mentioned as
Mhm.
we move from childhood to adulthood, especially if you had a childhood that was mostly you parenting your parents, it's really difficult to try to unlearn a lot of the things that they taught you on a psychological level. So, can
Mhm.
you give maybe one or two steps to go into unlearning and what that looks like?
I use a lot of parts work rooted in internal family systems, inner child healing. I help clients walk through. So maybe the next time you start to feel like, oh, I feel like I'm a bad daughter because I said no to my parent, it's really kind of like, oof, oh yeah, I'm noticing this thought. How's this making me feel right now? Asking yourself maybe a couple questions of, does this feel familiar? It does. It makes me feel like I'm being selfish, right? Like it makes me feel bad. Shame, even. I think shame's a big one. This does feel familiar. The next question I would ask for myself, how old do I feel right now? How old does this part feel? The one that's carrying the shame, this belief of like, I'm a bad daughter. Depending, various ages have come up for folks in the past. I won't get too in detail here because then that'll delve into more of the therapeutic work. But I think even that alone can help with understanding yourself more of like, oof, this does feel familiar. And it reminds me of when I was 10, right? And if I was with my 10-year-old self, what would she need right now? If she's feeling this shame that maybe your 10-year-old self didn't know, you know now because you're an adult, right? So you have more words, more language. So it's this inner child reparenting. That's a huge step in unlearning this belief that you are a bad daughter or I am selfish. It's really kind of tending to that I guess our child part, the one that is carrying that pain, and then naturally, when practicing that over and over again, I've experienced this myself. You start to notice that beliefs, maybe it's there, but it's not as strong. And maybe the next time it happens, you're able to pinpoint quicker. I know this is where this is coming from. I know what's
Right.
happening here. And also, this belief is not my own. This is coming from somebody else, and it's not true. And I know you mentioned a couple steps, but honestly, that's like the big one. I would say that's like those are two steps, but also journaling. Journaling can work wonders, I think, right? Especially if it's like in between session. But I would say that just kind of asking yourself those couple of questions can just kind of help understand yourself more.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned just knowing that a certain belief doesn't necessarily come from you. It
Hmm.
comes from something outside of yourself. And just the aspect of reparenting and relearning. I love unlearning because it's like
Right?
you're taking the good and you're taking the bad and you're discarding the bad things and the things that make you feel that shame and that discomfort. Like you're leaving that behind and you're taking along with you the stuff that does work. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, I try to practice that myself. It's hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah, well, Olivia, I thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I thank you for your work. And before we go, I have one final question for you. What
Okay.
are some uplifting words that you'd like to share with someone who is struggling with their mental health?
Mm. I'm going to think honestly of just myself 5, 6 years ago who was
Yeah.
maybe struggling. What you're going through, that feeling that you have like in your stomach, in your chest, is there for a reason. And I think there's a part of you that knows it's there for a reason. You know that you want to ask for help. You don't know where to turn to yet, but you're afraid of asking for help because you're also afraid of what you might have to uncover. Making that appointment, whether it be with a therapist, a primary care doctor that you trust, whether that's a psychiatric provider for medication, they kind of already did all the research and they're just scared to do it. Someone struggling with their mental health, but also know that they need help, is scared to ask for help and just say, I've been there too. I've been there too, where I've just kind of been like, no, I'll do the therapy. Nope. Or maybe I'll try medication. I know what that's like to feel scared and do it. But I also know what it's like to be on the other side of things. And while it's not always shining rainbows, I can truly say that it's worth it. So book that appointment. You won't regret it.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Where can people find you?
Social media, the easiest way I would say at Liv Curiously Therapy, because it has all my information there. My Instagram is a perfect way to find me.
Awesome.
Thank you
I
so
will.
much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast, or you can visit the official podcast website at roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.